Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Anime House. So today is a little bit of a special episode, I guess you could say. Today we're gonna do Star Wars Visions, and this was an episode I think I talked to Francisco about like last year. And like, well, not last year per se, but like when it got announced a while back, I was like, oh my God, we have to do an episode on this. And so I was like, oh my God, like I really want to do I really want to do an episode on this. And I recently finished them, all the episodes, and it was really good. It was really good. I really liked it. And so I am very excited to talk about it personally. And yeah. Oh, before we really get started, I guess, and really get into that, Francisco, what are your thoughts? Well, I'm
Um,
curious.
I'm with you. I just the entire premise or the concept of we're just gonna get a bunch of anime studios and gonna let them have their own place to do canon OC elsewhere kind of stuff was pretty great. And I'm very happy for anyone that was involved with the project who, actually likes Star Wars. 'Cause imagining the opportunity of having Disney contact you and then your boss saying we can write almost any story that we want in the Star Wars universe and we won't get sued. I think it's great. I mean, there's a lot of stories in Star Wars, and a lot of people thinking about the kind of things they want to see in Star Wars. For example, like the whole Jedi Sith, the dynamic, and even those whole sometimes the Tumblr posts or like the questionnaires, like are you a Jedi or Sith, or like what's the purple one when you have the purple lightsaber?
The purple lightsaber, that's
Yeah.
just a regular Jedi.
Okay. So that's a Jedi, but like, isn't the fact that it's like a combination of the colors, and it's like
Yeah, so the purple is supposed to represent like you're truly one with the Force, or you are like as close to the Force as possible, or it's supposed to represent that you are above like just you're not just the Jedi, you're like a little more than that. Like you're not a Sith either. It's like the perfect culmination of both. You are literally perfectly one with the Force. So
oh,
that's
that's
why
okay.
Mace Windu. That's why
Uh-huh.
people get really mad about Mace Windu because like he had a purple lightsaber. The whole point of Mace Windu was like he was really powerful, but he got shafted because like of the movies. So it's whatever.
On that topic, have you ever seen those Star Wars Vader fanfic films on YouTube?
Uh, I don't remember. I might have. I probably did, honestly. I consumed a lot of Star Wars in my lifetime.
It was a really cool like concept piece, and it went into this whole idea that there's a huge time gap where Vader and Luke Skywalker between the Vader, the prequels and the actual main trilogy, and there's like a 20-year time gap. And the Vader fan film deals with how Mace Windu survived the fall, and then he just like called Anakin Skywalker slash Vader to this one temple, and he's like, "All right, I'm gonna fight you." And that's like the main two opposing forces is Mace Windu, who's been injured and is probably like really pissed that Order 66 went and he wasn't there to do anything, and then Vader, or Vader, who's dealing with the fact that he used to be Anakin Skywalker and now he just has this awful Olympian body. There's a lot of cool stuff to to delve into that Star Wars lore wise, and I think the setup is really cool. For one, the fact that Mace Windu hated Anakin. He didn't even give that guy a chance since like day one, and now he was almost like proven correct to just not give him an opportunity. And I think such a film would be really cool.
It'd be sick. I mean, like, I think the cool thing about Star Wars in general is the fact that you can really go any direction with it because there's so many stories to explore. Not even so it has been announced that within Visions, like none of it is canon. And so since everything is non-canon and they continue to explore this medium, which I really hope they do, they can really explore more non-canon related material. So in theory, you can go like there's like almost infinite content with Star Wars. Because you can keep having stuff and stuff keeps happening. It's an ever expanding, it's a breathable, ever expanding universe, right? It's a universe that just keeps growing with everything that comes out and it doesn't necessarily stop. So you can continue expanding an individual story to an X degree until they die or you have them die or whatever may happen, right? So
And then the other thing what's really cool about anime studios is that I feel that the cool lightsaber scenes just get a bit of blow up with just these amazing talented studios.
They're
I don't know.
really
I
cool. They're
always
really cool.
I always felt that lightsaber battles would be really cool and anime-esque. I mean, they're pretty. It's Star Wars is just pretty anime to begin with.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I did want to talk about actually, on the topic of studios, was the Studio Trigger. So Studio Trigger had a really big involvement in this animation. In fact, they were for the most part the studio, in almost all of it. And so there was a lot of like odes and like the same animation. For those of you who may or may not have caught it, as like Kill la Kill, Dolly and the Franks, BNA, Little Witch Academia, and that was really cool. I was really impressed by that. Well, obviously there was going to be some sort of like resemblance between the two, but I thought that was dope. And then you also got an ode, excuse me, to the Miyazaki films, which I
Oh
think
my
is really
god.
cool too. And so like in let me check which episode. I am sorry about this.
Was it the Village Bride one?
It was not the Village Bride one. It
Oh,
was
see, that's
OP something something. Uh,
Toby?
but no. It wasn't Village Bride. But Village
Oh,
Bride was a really good episode. Arguably one of the better ones in my opinion. Um I believe I think it was TOB1. It was one
no,
of them.
I did
I
not
don't
pay
remember.
attention to that one, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, because I thought it had very similar things to Miyazaki. Oh, Lope and Ocho. Lope and Ocho. Um,
Really,
but
that one?
regardless of that, I think the it was really well done. I think each of the stories was really, really concise, and like it was really cool how a lot of it was kind of open-ended. So it really left it to the audience's kind of belief of like what was to happen. One of my personal favorite episodes was actually The Elder, where it
Oh,
had like the dude who wasn't necessarily a Sith. He was a defect of the Sith, but he was like very like power hungry and like he wanted a challenge.
he
And
was one with the dark side for sure. Not
I
a
mean,
Sith.
sure, you could argue that, but like I don't actually know if he was, but he was sinister, right? Like the main Jedi, who we actually never really got a name for. He was like, yeah, I don't know who he is. I don't know what he is. Again, leaving it extremely open-ended, which means that this can be explored more, or like this could be introduced later in the Star Wars universe because we know this is non-canon. So like this can come up later, right? The same thing. So it would be really cool to see those kind of like comparisons, contractions, if they do choose to continue like a Star Wars Visions Part Two or like a continuation of the show, maybe to have an extended version of each of the characters' story because like in every single episode, none of them had a definite ending. None of them did. So everything was so open ended. It was really left to the viewers or the audience's perception, which I really like because I always love like thinking about like what could have been. But at the same time, I thought it was super cool and interesting to see how they kind of like dealt with that in like an animation sort of style. So
With that in mind, the idea that it's an open-ended one and that these are one-shot episodes. Which one, if you had to pick anyone, would you have wanted to see more of? Like almost
oh,
a
the
full
duel,
season.
the
The
duel,
duel?
without a question. Like no doubt in my mind, it's a duel. That was my favorite. The duel was, I think, my favorite episode. I know I just said it was The Elder, but I think it's actually The Duel. The Duel is my favorite episode. The Elder's probably second. But The Duel was so good. It was so good. I remember watching it, and I got goosebumps. The animation, the story, everything was so freaking cool. And then the saber battle itself with the Ronin was like incredible. And I was like, yo, this is so sick. Like, I want to know more. And he wasn't a Sith, but he had red kyber crystal. So, for those of you who know anything about the Star Wars universe, um, so kyber crystals themselves are really, really hard to find within the Star Wars lore. Very hard to find. In fact, the only people that can really wield kyber crystals are the people who are one with the Force. In order to get the kyber crystals, you have to be a Force user. You cannot get it if you are not a Force user. So, like the fact that he was able to get them and then use them is an accomplishment in of itself. So that's something they don't really like. They discuss very briefly in a few episodes. I think they did either in the village. I think they did in the village, I believe, very briefly. In the Ninth Jedi, they go into it a little bit, but the whole notion behind kyber crystals is hella interesting. I think it's one of the most, personally for me, one of the most interesting things within the Star Wars lore universe. or Star Wars universe lore. And so I think that the fact that this Ronin was like collecting these kyber crystals and his lightsaber was red, and again, the color of the lightsaber is supposed to represent one's connection with the Force and their emotions, right? So if it was red, I'm very curious as to what that means exactly. But he never came off as a Sith. He wasn't a Sith. So like I was very like it was very confusing, right? Like we never saw him use Force Lightning and Force Choke. We didn't see him use like typical Sith Force moves. So I'm very curious to like know his backstory. So I want to know more. I really want to know more for the duel and that episode. I think it was without a doubt like my favorite episode. So I can talk
But with
about
these
that.
kyber crystals, I believe within the Disney lore, the reason why they get the red light nowadays is because the Jedi, or not the Jedi, but whoever's wielding it, makes the kyber crystals bleed or something. Like they inject a lot of pain into the kyber crystals to the point that it becomes just tinted red. I believe that's the ritual, at least from one of the Vader comic books that I remember watching or
There was that, and
reading.
then there was like they imbue hate and rage into it
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
dark
yeah.
side. And
You have to
because of that, it turns
make
red.
it. Yeah, it transforms reds through some kind of like dark
Yeah, it
side.
doesn't like automatically become red. Like your
Yeah.
lightsaber, like or it does. You don't. It doesn't be like you don't get a red lightsaber. Like it becomes red over time, based on like a lot of different. Kyber crystals are one of the most like interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Uh,
We can
and
talk definitely more about the Kyber crystals within when we reach the Ninth Jedi episode, but I bet since we started with the duo, which is like the number one episode or the first episode within Visions, we can probably talk a bit more about it. You know, mention some of the themes. It was definitely the good, the bad, and the ugly kind of situation, right? Like that lone wanderer going into a different
Lone
town.
Wolf, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was but you know, with the whole Ronin aesthetic going for it, I thought that was really cool.
It reminds me of Dororo. That's how you say
Yeah, for sure.
it.
I
But
wasn't. I thought when I first went into it, and then seeing this, I was like, "Oh, this totally fits," you know, right? Because lightsabers were pretty influenced from. Well, Vader's costume itself was influenced from like old samurais, and then eventually got a little twist with the German influence going into them. But for sure, sabers, you know, swords. So I saw it and I was like, "Yeah, this fits 100%." I thought that it was gonna be the standard for like the quality that we were gonna see in Visions, story wise, animation wise, and just like sound quality wise. But it was interesting to see like out of everything, like even at the end, I was like, you know what, the duo is pretty good. I wasn't like super excited for it, mostly because you know I was trying to be the whole yeah, of course this is gonna happen, but nah. And in retrospect, it was really good. It was, and it was really interesting. Like you're right, like it's not. It doesn't necessarily mean he's, you know, an actual Sith, even though he's using a red lightsaber. Like, what? How did he get the red lightsaber? What that means? That'd be pretty interesting to find out.
I'm very curious to know like his backstory, right? Because one thing that Star Wars doesn't really go into is like the notion of pain and someone's pain and how that can reflect in a kyber crystal. Because kyber crystals are one of the most like unique and very like shrouded in mystery things within the Star Wars universe and lore. And so I'm wondering if that has to do anything with it. So there's just so much there that's like, wow.
It's,
It's like, wow. And the animation was fantastic too. So
yeah,
like,
it was definitely unique. And his comment that he made when he gave the red kyber crystal to someone, like to one of the villagers, was like, "Here, keep this. It wards off evil." That was really interesting. The fact that he said
yeah,
it wards off evil, that
I'm
was
very
like,
curious to know what that means. And so like
yeah,
I really want more of an expansion on that.
yeah.
Without a doubt, my favorite episode.
And it's also letting you know that he's not collecting them as a resource because you know he gave one out like it was nothing, even though he hasn't.
Yeah.
He's going out of it's. You know what it reminds me of? It's very similar to what was that robot from the prequels? Grievous, General Grievous, because he used to
Mhm.
go out and collect lightsabers of Jedi that he slew, and now this man is doing something similar, but he's just taking the kyber crystal, which is obviously the more important part.
Yeah. But in this case, he is human, so he does imbibe emotion into these. So I'm curious to
Yeah.
see this.
Yeah. So yeah, that was really cool. I guess with that we can probably like move on to the second episode. Let me see. I have this episode list somewhere.
Yeah, the next episode is Tatooine Rhapsody. Honestly, I don't really want to talk about this one much.
Not a lot of people like this one.
Yeah, it was a fun episode. I honestly have nothing to comment on it. It was fun. It was very lighthearted after a more serious episode. I don't really have anything to say about it, so we can move on from this one.
I guess the premise is cool. How it's just one of the survivors from Order 66, and he's like, "I'm not a Jedi. I'm a music guy." That was
Yeah.
cute. The twins. That's the first one of Studio Trigger out of two, and it's the one that's very reminiscent of their style, a lot more than the other one. That one's the one that you get from. That one's the same vibe as B and A, and what was the other one? Well, it's the Kill la Kill kind of animation style.
Mhm.
It was very ridiculous, but I kind of like the whole twin situation. Twins are, I mean, a very prominent theme. Twins family within the Star Wars lore, in particular the Skywalker lore. So seeing
Oh,
twins
huge.
is, yeah, and twins on the dark side, and seeing how well one of the twins is effectively trying to save the other one from just ruining themselves by t- because he's taking. There was a huge Kyber crystal, right? That they had, or what was the deal
Huh?
within the twins? There was a Kyber crystal that one of the male twin was gonna take away from that one like station that they were running.
Yeah, because he was like, "It's gonna kill you."
Yeah. Okay. What do you have to say about it in general?
I mean, again, fine episode. Honestly, the ending was, I think, the one like it wasn't even a definite ending. The ending was like kind of meh, but again, it brought up like a very important question of like how powerful exactly are these like kyber crystals like capable of being? And I think throughout, like thematically, one of the things that's come up again and again and again in multiple episodes was the idea of like sabers and kyber crystals, right? And so it's one of those things that like within the Star Wars universe that hasn't been explored as much, and because of that, like I wanted to know more, and obviously we'll know more than Ninth Jedi, but I think the Twins was an okay episode. Like it wasn't I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was amazing.
A lot of people like mentioning this one because it's pseudo trigger. I do want to mention that out of every single one of them, I feel that this one was very. I mean, it had a lot of vibes with pseudo trigger by being super flamboyant and all over the place and like very extravagant. But in addition to that, I also kind of like the guy in the male character just because he's like, yeah, I don't care about literally anyone else, but I only care about my sister. That was a
Yeah.
very because it's like not necessarily a good guy because he doesn't really care about the utilitarian side of it all. He's just like, yeah, if every one of these can rot, but as long as like find a way to protect you, that's cool.
Yeah.
But definitely outside of that, like one character, it was like whatever.
Yeah, I think it was fine. I
Yeah.
think it was a fine episode. I really do want to talk about the Village Bride though. I think that was a fantastically written episode.
It's made by the same studio that made what's it called? I think this is the one that made not Tower of God, made an Abyss. I think. Let me see. You can actually tell which
Yeah.
one we're gonna be really good by just knowing the studio, and then if you knew the actual director, then you had an even easier time. Yeah, they made an Abyss and a bunch of others like Black Bullet and whatnot. Okay, cool.
So I think it was really good. I think the Village Bride. I think what really made it was like the story. The story is a very simple story of love, right? It really wasn't anything like super fancy, but it was just really heartwarming. And it was really like beautiful as like the way it was like shown and everything. I thought it was really good.
I think something that's really great about these different anthology stories is that it gives whoever the creative team the opportunity to imagine these different elsewhere stories like these planets that I sometimes feel, and I mentioned this with my sister mentioned it to me, that within the Disney one, like the RL ones, you see too many humans sometimes. But yeah, being able to see all of these different, not only aliens but the actual ecological niches of these planets is great. I think it adds a lot to the universe as a whole. Makes it not feel like it's only about the Skywalker saga.
That's what I love about Visions, honestly, and that's what I think makes it so special. Because in all honesty, the Skywalker, like I mean, sorry, the main movies is just a circle jerk of the Skywalkers. But like Visions tells a story in like Clone Wars, right? Clone Wars, Visions. That's why I think Clone Wars is one of the greatest Star Wars mediums ever made because it explores all these different like niches within the Star Wars universe that like you would never get to if you just consume the movies. And like I think these niches are what makes Star Wars so great. It's not like the Skywalkers themselves. They're kind of annoying, honestly. But like Like my favorite character, dude. My favorite character, my top two favorite characters in all of Star Wars is Ahsoka. Ahsoka is number one. I love Ahsoka. And number two is actually Darth Maul. And we never get anything on Darth Maul, and it's so frustrating. I even have like the canon books of Darth Maul, and I have the Ahsoka books personally. And they're my favorite characters hands down. And they're both they're not in the like well Maul's in the movie for like 10 minutes. But like they don't explore you don't get to explore both of their backstories a lot. And unless you watch Clone Wars, unless you've watched Rebels, unless you've read more of the extended universe stuff. And that's what I love about like Visions and what Visions is doing. It's showing all of this in different planets in like greater detail, which is I think is so fascinating, which I love.
Did you see the Obi-Wan Kenobi one versus Darth Maul vision? No, not Rebels
Yeah, I did.
episodes.
Of course I did. Of course I did. Yeah, they're pretty good. I am not a huge fan of Rebels, but I watched it.
Not a few. Yeah, Rebels itself, but the Obi-Wan scene with Maul, as standalones are
It was
they're
really
really good.
good. It was really good. Maul keeps getting shafted. It's really sad. He died like 3 times. But like that's a whole nother discussion.
Ahsoka also has a lightsaber. What's the deal with
Okay,
that?
so
Is
that's
that
very specific. So if you read the book, it'll go more into detail about it. But basically, the reason Ahsoka has a lightsaber is because she's not aligned to the Sith or the Jedi. She doesn't care about either or because she's neither. She is just herself. And so Ahsoka, the whole point was like Ahsoka after Clone Wars was like trying to find or struggling to find her own path to being like because she left the term Jedi. She's not a Jedi anymore, but she's not a Sith either, right? She doesn't do anything for evil. She's kind of like she's a rogue person with the Force. I guess is the best way to put it. But basically, what she does, she's just like a lending hand, and she just helps people. That's what's like really special about her. And so like she's a very, very, very good character. Like the way she was written, executed, everything. Oh my god. Again, Ahsoka is like literally without a doubt my favorite Star Wars character ever. And I'm including like Vader and all of that. Like Ahsoka is like it for me. I love Ahsoka. So I would highly recommend reading the book that actually came out in 2016. It goes a lot more into detail.
this makes a good transition into the Night Jedi because the Night Jedi that story is all about extending the lore and the possibilities of Kyber
Yeah,
crystal.
and then like kind of reinvigorating the Jedi again.
Yeah. I think this is the first time that a master smith or saber smith for lightsabers was introduced into the lore, right? Correct? Like the only one that can make sabers that can accurately reflect what the user.
Which is which is super interesting because if anyone is familiar with Star Wars lore, or if you read like the comics or even the show, um, it's actually mostly the Jedi themselves that make their own lightsaber. No one else is supposed to make it for them. But then in Visions, we're introduced with the concept of someone else making the lightsaber for you, and that's really unique. That's really unique. In fact, in Clone Wars, there's an entire arc about like literally like Jedi making their own lightsabers, which is super interesting. And but like in this case, we're seeing in Visions, that's not really the case, and so it's Visions is non-canon and it's been confirmed, but at the same time, like it's very interesting to see like a parallel side to that story of like you could make it and see what happens, but then the kyber crystal and the length of the
Yeah,
lightsaber can change. It might not fit you properly, all of that. I thought that was really those were really cool points that I didn't think about. So
yeah. I think definitely with the and especially something that's good about this is that it allows Disney to see the receptions to certain stories and like what people really liked, right? So if they enjoy the whole idea of a smith for these sabers, they can probably adopt that or roll that over into the actual canon and introduce an actual, saber smith that gives the user that cool almost choose your personality quiz, but on a
yeah,
saber. Yeah, I think as a story, I would have wanted to see more of the Jedi. I really liked like the female lead, especially because she was just a walking Jedi master without realizing it. That was I enjoyed that twist that I didn't really see until she's like, yeah, I've known this master Jedi since I was a kid. I was like, wait a minute, and you've been able to do all of this cool stuff since you were a kid? So it was really cool seeing that one moment when well, initially she doesn't have a strong connection to the Force because she's probably never been put in a situation where she's needed to use it as intensely as she did. When she finally awakened and the saber turned green to reflect that this is the color of a Jedi Master, that was really cool.
I think overall, yeah, I think this episode was super solid. Like plot wise, story wise, animation wise, it was really good. It was really interesting. It
Yeah.
brought up a lot more questions about the kyber crystals and the way they're used and whatnot. So I really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah. And I mean it's production IG, and I think the Night Jedi is one of my favorite ones. Probably like my favorite, if not top two. It's one of those two.
Okay. Uh,
Definitely. Definitely. I think it adds a lot to the
it's a
lore.
lot of lore. It's a very lore heavy episode, but I'd 100%. Yeah, it's probably one of the most important episodes actually out of all of them. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's without a doubt probably one of the most important because it opens up a lot of questions as to like the whole notions of like sabers and kyber crystals and like the force and whatnot. So it's very cool. T0B1, I mean, it was a fine episode. I
It was a very Japanesey
Yes,
episode. It's just a homage to what Astro Boy,
yes,
100%.
without a doubt.
It's
It
just
was good. It was good. I don't really.
culturally, culturally, it fits, right? This Western IP was loaned to the island in the east of the land of the rising sun. It's almost, and it's for an anime studios, it makes sense that one of the episodes would be Astro Boy, which is one of the initial animes. Or
Yeah.
yeah, so it fits. I was like, whatever about it. It does have one interesting lore bit, right? It's the fact that there's a machine. The other thing, the other really dark side of Star Wars is how slavery is a thing. But slavery with machines, and how what's the correct word? It's a very Black Mirror kind of existential dread that just looms over Star Wars that we just flaunt like it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I suppose that's like probably the biggest sticking point for Toby. The idea that you can get a droid and it can gain more than just because the droids in Star Wars do have sentience, but Toby is definitely unique in it. It's a combination of it's a real life kyber crystal,
Mhm.
correct? Like he brought a kyber crystal to life. That's what it was.
It goes to
It's some
show how unique and how crazy these kyber crystals are, and that's what I'm seeing in Visions, and like that's what I got throughout the show. Like these kyber crystals are manipulated and used in so many different ways throughout each episode. Like Visions, each episode is individual, but there is a thematic like overall overarching like plot like thing of like kyber crystals is the main theme, and I think it's so cool, man. I think it's so cool.
It's I wouldn't say just the main theme, but I definitely feel that within Star Wars, there's a huge respect of what a saber could
Yeah.
represent for the story, and they do a better job at what than the seventh film did with lightsabers. Which I personally, you know what? Nah, let's
We're
not
not
talk
talking about
about the
those
seventh
movies.
film. But
I refuse to talk about the seventh, eighth, and ninth movie. Those are atrocious. Um, we can move on to the Elder, and the Elder is probably one of my second favorite episode. I think it's really, I think it's
it's a really
very cool. First of all, the actual battle lasts 2 minutes. It's so quick, but it's so cool. The Elder himself, he's kind of freaky, not gonna lie, but like it brings up
good.
so many questions. Like he defected from the Sith, already like literally impossible to do. The penance for defecting from the Sith is death. So like,
Yes.
how did he escape that? But then see at the end it gets so interesting because he dissolves, he crumbles. He doesn't like die. There's no blood. He just crumbles, and like that makes you wonder. Like, so when I first watched it, I actually remember because I literally watched this episode like 6 hours ago. I was sitting there like, dude, there's no way. Like it was hatred. It was hatred. Hatred was driving him. Like he was literally the embodiment of hatred and evil. But then I was like, no, there's something more to this that I want to know what it is. And so I think it has something to do with the saber and the kyber crystals because the sabers were different, right? They were swords. They weren't like an actual saber. They were like almost like daggers, in
Yeah.
fact.
But they had which is weird to just have an edge for a saber, which initially can already just cut through anything. But that might have just been an artistic choice. But I can see what you're saying. They were more closer to
Yeah,
katanas, right? In that they had an edge rather than just cylinder.
So one of the
situation.
questions that comes up is like, what does that represent? What does he represent? What does it mean? And what does him dissolving to dust instead of actually dying mean? And
That might be
who is he?
the way I took that is that
And so like with all these questions kind of like coming up, it's been like, huh. Like I think this was a really like interesting episode in that regard, right? And it also explored one of Star Wars's most like black holes, which is like the outer ring. Um and like and it's been explored once in the Clone Wars. I believe when Anakin went to the Forest planet and he found out, okay, these are huge spoilers.
yeah, wait, those are really good episodes. The father, the
Yeah,
son,
this is
and
literally my
the
favorite arc in all
mother.
of Star Wars. I want to talk about it, but I also don't want to spoil it. So
Nah, I think we should
I
leave
will
it
leave it
alone.
alone. But
But
I
yeah,
will say though that that arc is where I think one of the very few times explore the Outer Ring. So anything with the Outer Ring is like always been shrouded in mystery. So like them exploring it, but then it bringing up more questions is always something that's like kind of frustrating because it's like, damn, bro, like I want to know
that's
more. But
that's how it should
yeah,
be. It's the outer ring should always be a place where like you want to learn more, but then when they ever touch it's like I have more questions.
yeah,
So
and so like
I think
there's
that's a
so
good
much more that just came out,
thematically.
right? And
Thematically, I feel that that's how stories in the outer rim should be.
interesting. Okay, yeah, I think yeah, I mean I really like this episode. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The way attributed to him turning into dust was this fact that he spent his entire life in the dark side, and that just eats at your
Yeah.
soul pretty much. I kind of that's kind of how I took it. But of course, now that you put it out there, it's like it could be of many things. Obviously, definitely a really cool episode. He's interesting in that he's not a Sith, and Sith is more so sort of a dogma situation, but he's definitely a Dark Force user, like 100%. And that in itself is crazy. And the other cool thing is that he's also someone that's just interested in fighting people. That's this entire thing. Which I love the comments that time is what ended up beating or helping us beat him because if he was younger, I because the Master Jedi is talking to his Padawan there, he's just straight up saying, I do not specialize in fighting, or rather, we're not out there, always training our sixth sense when it comes to our fighting keen. And this man spent his entire life doing that, but right now he's like 80 or 70, and I'm like pretty much at my prime. But understanding that is like, had he been in his prime, like he commented, this would have ended differently. That's spooky because he's right. But yeah, the other was definitely cool. I think this is another one of those Studio Trigger ones,
Yeah,
right?
it was.
Yeah, Studio Trigger. Yeah,
Yeah, it was so good, man. What an episode.
yeah.
That was a really good episode. So then we'll go to Lop and Ocho. Lop and Ocho.
We have two more
Yeah.
episodes left. Yeah, La Pinocho. The, I okay, so I got annoyed with this one eventually closer to the end because I was like, come on. I mean, I see it. It's still fine. It's a family episode, right? It's one about like defining your family, adopting someone, and accepting them into your family, even though if they're not blood related. So that was cool. What's really great about this one is that the entire story pays high respect to a saber, to the point where it stands as a symbol of a family itself. It's a relic of a relationship from long ago when a old Jedi came to their planet and befriended this one family. He ended up giving them the saber. I don't even know if it was a guy. It might have been a gal. But yeah, I thought that was cool. The rabbit itself, the entire the first couple of minutes, right, with the whole story about the enslaved rabbit from a place where the Empire just took the planet, exploited its resources, enslaved its people, and now you see this one of the escapees just running around the place from what seemed to be a market, right, like one of those crazy all of nowhere markets. I thought that was a really great scene.
Oh, and for preface, uh, Geno Studio was the studio that made this, and they also made Golden Kamuy. For those who are familiar, so just want to put that out there. Kamui. Kamui? I don't know how to say that. Yeah, I don't know. I was indifferent towards this episode, to be honest. I was still kind of riding the high from the Elder, so I was like, okay, cool. Cool story, bro.
So General Studio is pretty cool. I haven't seen Golden Kamuy yet, but I wanted to. I was supposed to. I just never got around to it.
There's a lot of anime that is the case for me right now. What do you think of the last episode?
I really like the music.
Okay.
Um, that's about out of everyone. I felt or I noticed the music on this one a lot more and than the
Mhm.
others. I think as a story, it was very reminiscent of the whole Anakin, prequel situation where he was getting these visions from the Force, and similar to Anakin, he's trying to just deny the fact that things are predestined, which is a very strong theme, or an predestined predestination, whatever, is a theme within Star Wars. It's one that it hasn't been entirely explored yet, right? I say it entirely, but the fact that why is it that the Force shows specific people these visions of the future, right? And what happens to these people when these visions end up being fulfilled, almost from their own hands because of how paranoid they are from the vision.
I agree, and I also want to add, this was the episode that I think they made like the Sith look really scary. Like it was actually like insane. Like, and I know you know the image I'm talking about. Like that was so cool. Oh, I was taken aback. It reminded me of the ending of um Rogue One with Vader when he like pulls out the lightsaber and it's all red and it's like and
Yeah,
then you hear flashing, he just goes like beast mode basically. It reminded me of that, and I was like, whoa.
best scene in the whole movie, Rogue One.
But yeah, it reminded me of that, so I thought it was really sick. And it was a really dark ending. So
Yeah, the ending was good. Good ending. Um, Outside of that, I thought it was another good show of seeing the different niches within the planets, right? We have these interesting those things you read in Final Fantasies, the chocos
Mhm.
or whatever. Well, they had something like that, and it was just good to see the morphology that they decided to go with. So that's good, like always. A good way to show the high diversity that's always prevalent or always a possibility within the Star Wars canon or Star Wars
yeah,
stories.
I think it's a really
Yeah,
good
I think that,
episode overall. Yeah, I mean, I have nothing else to say. Uh,
I
I
mean,
can
yeah, it's
rank
great.
my episodes if you guys want to hear it, but that's
At least your top three, even though we already know
yeah.
two
I
of
mean, my
them.
top three is my number one is the Duel. My number two is definitely the Elder, and then my number three is the Ninth Jedi, just because of its impact.
Okay, cool. It seems that it's a consistency between those three. I also share similar, top threes. The order might be changed, but honestly, that doesn't matter. The point is that those are the strongest contenders for what we
Yeah.
saw.
Overall, I mean,
Yeah.
dude, I love Star Wars Visions. I think it was fantastically made. It was really well executed. It showed that anime as a medium is like literally nuts in like a lot of different facets. And the fact that it went to like a Western form of medium and it still performed like even better. I'm really hoping not only this like gets people into anime, but it also shows like how powerful animation can be. And like one thing that really bugs me or has bugged me for a while now is the fact that in all these award shows and all of that, anime has never been like a really big contender in anything. Where I think personally, anime is a better storytelling medium than like almost like I want to say 75 or 80% of Western like television shows and movies. I really think chooses to either renew this or like kind of look more into this, maybe create a movie. And like I would watch the hell out of that. But I really, really enjoyed Star Wars Visions for what it was. I think it was really ambitious, but I think they nailed it on the head. I think Studio Trigger did a fantastic job, which I was really surprised by, especially since I was spoiler, I wasn't the biggest fan of Kill la Kill. So like I was like, but like they did a really good job and like I mean
All the studios, huh?
like at the end of the day, I mean, I feel like these studios killed it. They did exactly what they meant to do, and they like even the worst episode was probably still like pretty good, and that's kind of saying something. So I think overall, Star Wars Visions was a hit, and it was fantastic. And I'm really hoping that Disney kind of either moves forward with this kind of stuff more, or maybe we get like a part two, or we explore this more within the Star Wars universe. I'd be really appreciative of that. So.
I think you nailed it in the head, Nikhil. I think I have nothing else to contribute. I definitely want to see more. I want to see anything that Disney may. The other thing is like I wonder how much executive power Disney had, because of course directors have sometimes visions for certain IP that might be too much. right? Because they have a brand to protect. So I'm curious to understand or to see if there was any ideas that were shot down right away, right? Because they might have been either too ambitious or they were or just too dark, if anything, right? Because like in the end, Star Wars is also a medium or it's also a property aimed for children,
Mhm.
and to sell. But given the opportunity, I would like to see what these kind of directors or what the team can actually make while having the freedom that they would want. Because Disney is very, they have a lot of control and they have and what they say has a lot of weight to it. Like if they don't want something, it's not going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we'll see. Hopefully they can find a mix where it can still be entertaining for just, not just children or anything, but it can be just a very engaging and thought-provoking series if they do go along with the movie or a series or whatever they decide to do with the attraction they got from Visions and the good relationships they might have developed with these, you know, Japanese studios.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm hoping, right? Now we can see more like branch between these two, and who knows what they'll adapt in the future. So we'll see, we'll see. But I'm excited. I think it was really good overall. I really enjoyed it.
So that was Visions. Okay, everyone, take care. Be sure to watch it if you have Disney Plus.
Yes, it is on Disney Plus. You can get Disney Plus for free with Verizon, so I just applied.
Okay, look at that. If you have Verizon, you have Disney Plus most
Mm.
likely. And of course, there's also other cool stuff in there. Loki, for what it's worth, I enjoyed the first couple of episodes. It's still pretty good, honestly. And The Mandalorian, another good Star Wars.
Very good, yeah. Mandalorian's really good. So
Very good.
a lot of good Star Wars content on here if you want to explore more of that. But
The place for Star Wars content. All right, well, that's it for me.
yeah, that's all I got. Yeah, be sure to look out for our next episode, whenever that may be, and wherever you are, stay safe, be well. If make sure to follow us on Twitter, follow us on YouTube, Anime House on YouTube. In the About section on YouTube, you can find our Twitter. You can find the link to our Amazon, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're on everything. We're on every platform. So please check us out. Share it with your friends. We'd love to have you guys there, and feel free to like tweet at us. We'd love to discuss with you guys about some more Star Wars related content in the future. You can follow us at Anime House. That should be our Twitter handle. So if you're interested, it is specifically at AnimeHU 657-17152. So yeah, give us a follow. We'd love to talk to you guys.